What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome to another episode of Eagles Latest right here on FanArch. I'm your host, Cory Nidoh. Well, we've had one full day to completely digest and kind of comprehend what took place on Sunday night. Obviously, the Eagles season is over, and now all the questions are starting to loom on how this team is going to pick up the pieces and how are they going to fix what really was a broken offense, and an offense that almost everybody knew was going to cost them the season. It was a matter of when, not how, right? I mean, we all knew that if this Eagles offense went quiet in the second half or in either half of a game, especially in the playoffs, they would have little to no shot, even with the defense playing as well as it had in the past month or two. And that's exactly what happened. Now, the biggest question is, well, who's to blame, right? How somebody has to be the scapegoat, somebody has to take the heat for it. And you look on social media, you listen to different media personalities, and there's a lot of finger pointing. Kevin Patullo, Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, the players in general. And I think it's a collective blame game here. I think the coaching should wear the brunt of the blame. I think they should shoulder most of it because these were things that just continuously popped up week in and week out. And the coaches always just said, oh, we're going to clean things up. Oh, we're going to dive into the film and fix these things and make sure they never happen again. Well, guess what? Every week it happened again. And that's on coaching. There's no explanation other than that these coaches just could not find the answers. Kevin Patullo couldn't find the answers to scheme up some of the best offensive weapons in the NFL. Nick Sirianni, as the head coach, couldn't come in and slap a Band-Aid on it. He couldn't find a fix either because he struggles to develop offensive concepts, even though this is Nick Sirianni's offense for the most part. They don't have somebody on staff to fix it. And it just continued to move on to next week. Oh, we're close to breaking out. We're close to fixing things. And it didn't happen. And now some of that falls on the players, obviously. The players did not perform well. Jalen Hurts took all the blame after the game on Sunday night, saying that he owns all of it. And he didn't have a good game. I mean, there's no way around it. I mean, we're talking about the coaches. Jalen Hurts deserves blame too. And let's be honest, he's not a top 10 quarterback right now. He's not even a top 15 the way he played this season. And you can splice it up. You can say, well, the offensive line was banged up. Kevin Patullo just can't call plays. And yes, that might all be true. But there's still deficiencies in Jalen Hurts' game that they need to coach around and coach to his strengths. And we've seen that before, right? Look at last season. They had a great mix of run and pass. Obviously, the running game was the focal point of this offense a season ago, but they ran RPOs. Jalen Hurts ran the ball more, and it was effective. Hurts needs to run the ball more to be effective to keep defenses honest. He is not going to be a quarterback that can win you a game week in and week out with his arm talent alone. Now, did he do it in the Super Bowls? Yes, he did. He did show up in the biggest moments so far in his career. But the Eagles had one final drive, one time where the offense could finally say, hey, defense, we got you. We're going to put you on our backs. You played a hell of a game. You kept the 49ers to 23 points. One of those touchdowns coming on a trick play against one of the best offenses in the league since week 10, averaging 30 points a game. We're going to go down and we're going to find a way to score. And what happens? They falter. 2 drops, one by A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. Jalen Hurts not on target. And then they inexplicably call that deep verts play call at the end of the game 3 times on that final drive. Like, how is that even possible that you call the same play 3 times on a drive? I could see maybe you spread it out over the course of a game, but the 3 times they ran that same 4 verts call, and then they run it against a quarters defense specifically made and implemented to stop such a play. It really is malpractice across the board. It falls on Kevin Patullo. It falls on Nick Sirianni. Jalen Hurts threw it into triple coverage. I would have liked to have seen him go to A.J. Brown at the top, and I know the A.J. Brown haters are saying, oh, you're going to throw to A.J. Brown? He had 2-3 drops. Yes, you throw it to your best wide receivers. Puka Nacua drops balls once in a while. Does Matt Stafford not throw the football back to Puka Nacua? No, absolutely not. So we'll have to figure out what they do here. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the Eagles will be making changes. I mean, if they don't, the city is going to absolutely lose its mind. But I think moving forward, this is what they are going to have to do because they need to make some big changes and they are going to have to figure out what they can do here in regards to the offense because it has to be fixed. It's too talented. There's too much money involved. And I think, obviously, the starting point is you fire Kevin Patullo or you quietly demote him back to his quarterback's coaching role, passing game coordinator, whatever you want to call it. And then you have to go out and find an OC and tell Nick Sirianni, whoever we hire is going to have full autonomy of this offense. We can pick and choose a couple of your plays and schemes that have worked well, but this is our guy. This is the offense we are going to run. This is the playbook we are going to use. And now the Eagles are kind of at an inflection point here because they need to decide this offseason, okay, is Jalen Hurts our quarterback for the next 5-6 years and we're going to build around him? Or is Nick Sirianni the head coach for the next 5-6 years and we're going to build a strong roster for him? And that's where the rubber meets the road here, and they are going to have to make a decision. I don't know if the marriage between Hurts and Sirianni will last that long, but they need to figure it out because it is a crucial point now, which is crazy to say considering this team literally won a Super Bowl last season. But there are too many question marks on the offensive side, let alone some of the talent that they're possibly going to lose because of free agency, turmoil. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, but there's just too much going on right now. And they need to figure out what they want to do and how they move forward. Obviously, it starts with a new OC. Do they fire Nick Sirianni? I don't think so. I think he has built enough equity where he earned and deserves one more year. I mean, firing a head coach a year after not making the Super Bowl, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the league and to these coaching candidates? Does Sirianni have flaws? Absolutely. No doubt about it. You say, well, if you got an OC that does that, then what does Nick Sirianni do? And that's a valid point. He's basically a rah-rah CEO coach. But I will say I've been in that locker room. I've talked to those guys, and they love playing for Nick Sirianni. They love how he handles the media. They love how he'll take the blame. And yeah, fans, the media, they can sniff out when he's lying, but he's not going out there and embarrassing any of his players. And that goes a long way. And that still carries weight. How much of a leash will Sirianni get by just doing that? That remains to be seen. But they need to get an offensive coordinator similar to Vic Fangio where he takes over completely, essentially. And the hard part is offensive coordinators that succeed and that are good typically will get a head coaching job in a year or two. Whereas defensive coordinators, they seem to be happy calling defenses. Vic Fangio has confirmed he has no desire to be a head coach anymore. Some of these offensive coordinators, they have more aspirations in terms of wanting to be a head coach because obviously it's extremely lucrative and it's your show. But the Eagles are at a crossroads here with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni, and they have to decide what direction they want to go in a way. I'm, for one, believer that they need to keep Sirianni at least for one more season. I don't know how you fire a guy that has led a team to 5 straight playoff appearances. And I know there's going to be people out there, oh, well, he was carried by Kellen Moore last year. He was carried by the running game. And that could very well be true. But he still decides when to go for it on 4th down or when to kick field goals or when to punt. He has this team playing for him and this organization as a whole. And that counts for something still. So I think they will keep Sirianni. They will most likely, pretty much definitely, remove Kevin Patullo from his play calling duties. And it was telling how some players reacted. Jalen Hurts was asked point blank, hey, do you want Kevin Patullo to stay as offensive coordinator? And he really didn't give a glowing remark. He basically said it's too soon to think about that. I put my trust in Howie, Nick, and Mr. Lurie. Nothing at the end. Well, hey, Kevin and I, we've been working together for a long time. I'd like some continuity. It wasn't all Kevin. I didn't play well, all that stuff. But Jalen didn't say that. And I'm not criticizing Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying he needs to give a compliment to Kevin Patullo, but Jalen Hurts' words carry a ton of weight. They mean more. And he's very particular in how he answers questions. And I thought, to me, that kind of stood out. Whereas you hear from Saquon Barkley in the locker room, and he kind of said, hey, it's easy to point your finger at one person. He said for the media, we need a story, and we got to do our jobs, but somebody's got to catch the blame, especially when we had the season that they had this year. Barkley's like, do I think it's fair? No, I don't think it's fair at all. So he was more complimentary, more defensive of blaming Kevin Patullo, but nonetheless, there clearly was a disconnect. Kevin Patullo clearly isn't made to call plays at this juncture of his career. So we'll see who they choose, where they go, but I would guess that it's going to happen sooner than later so they can all get on the same page and figure out how to right this ship, because it certainly is starting to leak and starting to take on water. Moving on, and speaking with the offense, I know a lot has been made about A.J. Brown and his performance Sunday night. He had those big drops, and a lot of people might not agree with this take, but I just think A.J. Brown's getting a lot of heat because he went public and criticized the offense. And everybody's like, oh, he goes out and he complains that he's not getting the football and this and that he has at times. But back in October, November, when the offense was continuing to struggle, he came out and said, we have to be better. We cannot constantly rely on the defense bailing them out. And if you go on social media, you go to your friend groups, you go on your group chats, I guarantee everybody at one point has said the same thing, that they cannot continue to rely on this defense. A.J. Brown also said you can't just expect to flip the switch and the offense clicks. That's what they were hoping was going to happen when they rested all of their starters in the final week of the season. And look where that got them. They scored 19 points against the worst remaining playoff team in the tournament. The San Francisco 49ers defense was decimated, and they were only able to muster 19 points. And again, it goes back to the topic we discussed earlier, a lot of blame to go around. But for those who want A.J. Brown out of the city and off their team, how do you think this offense is going to look without A.J. Brown? Devontae Smith, a fantastic wide receiver. I love watching Devontae Smith play. I love that he was able to do what he did this year. And he was on pace to have a career year before wasn't part of the game plan. I know they fed A.J. Brown a lot more, but the offense was moving a bit as well. It didn't result in wins. I think that's more coincidence-based than anything else, but that's besides the point. Devontae Smith, maybe he could be a number one wide receiver. But he's had this success because defenses week in and week out have had to game plan to cloud and defend A.J. Brown. All that focus will be shifted to number 6. Because as it stands, if you trade A.J. Brown, your number 2 wide receiver is Darius Cooper. They are not bringing Jahan Dotson back. They never really used him in the passing game. So if you trade A.J. Brown, who, by the way, if you do, you're not really saving a ton of money in cap space. It's $7 million, I believe, after the June 1st deadline. You have to replace A.J. Brown with a player of his caliber. And you're not going to get the value you think you're going to get for A.J. Brown because of his contract and because some of his antics. Some of his antics I can't defend, like how he didn't talk to the media yesterday during locker cleanout day, or how he didn't stand against the media to talk about his drops and performances. That is indefensible. I cannot defend him on that. That is a terrible, terrible look. 100%, full stop. But he's been made out to be this villain because he called out the offense publicly. Okay, maybe you don't like that, but this is a guy who was saying he wants this offense to be better because they have to pick up the slack and not rely on the defense every single week. And it never happened. So you cannot like A.J. Brown. You can say, oh, get him out of the city, get him off the team. Just think of where this offense will be without him, with the roster currently looking the way it is. They will have to either make a huge trade. The free agency wide receiver class is abysmal. George Pickens is leading the way in terms of big name wide receivers. You want George Pickens on this roster? So I understand the frustration. I get that. Will the Eagles trade A.J. Brown? Maybe. There's a lot of people out there that believe that he is done and he played his final game as an Eagle. I personally think that would be a terrible move. I think that it just makes this offense even worse. And it also makes this team and the offensive coordinating position less attractive. Instead of having A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, a pair of 1,000-yard receivers, a running back in Saquon Barkley, an offensive-minded OC could drool over the possibilities if they're competent. But if you take A.J. Brown out of the equation, well, this offense doesn't look that nice, right? Devontae Smith, Darius Cooper, who's your tight end? If they don't re-sign Dallas Goedert for another year. So, I understand the frustration with A.J. Brown. I get it. I absolutely do. Bad look. Terrible look for what he's done the last 2 days. Absolutely. But this is the best wide receiver in franchise history. You don't trade your stars right away just because things go south. I mean, they've been able to work through it. This locker room is extremely close-knit, extremely strong. They can handle the little turbulence of A.J. Brown going to the media and saying, hey, we're not good enough offensively. So we'll see how that pans out. That is going to be a huge topic over the course of the offseason. And last but not least, the Eagles do have a lot of tough decisions coming up in terms of their free agents. The most notable free agents include Reed Blankenship, who had a really bad game on Sunday. Nakobe Dean, his rookie contract is up. That is going to be a very interesting dynamic because the Eagles have Jahad Campbell waiting in the wings. He filled in while Dean was out early in the season, and Dean's going to command some money. Now, of course, Nakobe's a little bit injury prone, but boy, when he's on the field, he is a physical enforcer. But how do you have your first round pick sit for another season when Campbell has shown flashes that he could be a legit defensive star in this league? Jalen Phillips was a great acquisition for the most part this season. Again, the pass rush as a whole on Sunday was non-existent, surprisingly. I think they should re-sign Jalen Phillips. We'll see what Brandon Graham does. Does he go back into retirement? Dallas Goedert, I mentioned. He is due for another new contract. Do they sign him? Grant Calcaterra, I don't think they need him back. He's probably not back. You've got Fred Johnson and Matt Pryor and Brett Toth, some depth on the offensive line. But those are the big guys. Blankenship, Dean, Phillips, and Goddard. Jake Elliott's in that mix as well. Jake Elliott, I think they probably cut ties with. He's had a great career with the Eagles after being picked up on the Bengals practice squad, but I do think the road has run out for Jake Elliott after the extra point miss, because a lot of people are alluding to that extra point kind of force the Eagles to chase it all game long. Now, the Niners missed an extra point, which changed the complexion, because if Jake Elliott didn't miss that extra point, well, now they only had to be in field goal range. Jake Elliott has been near automatic in postseason field goals. You kick the field goal there instead of going for it on 4th and 11, and you play in overtime and try your chances there. But this Eagles team has a lot of questions to be answered, mainly with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. Where do they go? How do they handle this? And then what players are they going to bring back? And what players are they going to let go? So keep it tuned in to Eagles latest. I'll be sure to keep you up to date with all the latest and greatest about your beloved Birds. A little bit of a tumultuous time right now for the Eagles, which is kind of crazy to say, again, coming off a Super Bowl victory last year. But this is a team that has built a window of opportunity to become a dynasty. They've made the Super Bowl 2 of the last 3 years. This year just seemed like they didn't have it all together, but there's still way too much talent on this team to let it just go into a complete tailspin. So that will do it for this episode. As always, I thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on what the Eagles should do this offseason. Who do you think deserves the biggest blame for the offensive struggles? And we will be back at it tomorrow with another episode. As always, thanks so much for watching.